Title: AITA for refusing to cook for my boyfriend's daughter even though she had a breakdown? I have been dating this guy, Mark, who has a 14-year-old kid, Jennifer, for a while now. I have only met her a couple of times, so we aren't that close. I started seeing her often after I moved in with Mark, during his custody time. We get along fine and I think we are bonding well. There is just one issue. Since I grew up in poverty, I hate wasting food. Jennifer has an issue with food. I am not talking about being a little cranky when hungry. She would cry and scream and even break things if dinner gets delayed by half an hour. During her last visit, work was very hectic for me and Mark. Mark had to go to office while I WFH. Since I knew how busy I would be end of day and how Jennifer gets, I woke up early, prepare breakfast, lunch and dinner. I informed her the same. End of day, I am in so many meeting and calls and Jennifer barged in 15 past her dinner time and told me serve her dinner. I reminded her that the dinner was in the fridge and all she had to do was heat it up. She comes back 15 minutes later and told me that she threw the food away and now she wanted me to give her a snack for the time being and make her something else. I told her that I am not going to do that and then locked myself inside the study. I could hear her screaming and crying and I refused to give in. Once my work was done, 2 hours later, she was still crying. She never heated the dinner. She tried it cold, didn't like it, threw the entire dinner for 3 away and then started demanding me for a freshly cooked dinner. She begged me to cook her something and I told her that I already did cook her something and that she threw it away. I told her she can either cook for herself or wait until her father comes home and he can cook for her. I went to bed hungry as I was so tired. Next day, Mark told me that he didn't get home until midnight and she was still sobbing when he arrived. Although he agrees that Jennifer was acting entitled, he also says that I should have just cooked her something once my work was done as I knew about her food issues instead of letting her cry for hours. Title: AITA for telling my former stepson the real reason I didn't see him much after the divorce. I was married to my ex-wife for 9 years. I came into my stepson's life when he was 4 and my wife and I divorced when he was 13. It's been 7 years since the divorce. I've since remarried and have 2 kids with my current wife. I raised my stepson, I'll be calling him JT, as my own and I loved being his father. We were very close and I wanted to adopt him but was constantly blocked by his bio dad, who's a real boss. The divorce between me and my ex-wife was messy. We married too young and looking back, she was a toxic and negative force in my life. I also didn't know it then, but she is also bipolar, which was undiagnosed and untreated when we were together, and it explains a lot of the behavior I witnessed. I wanted to stay in my JT's life since I basically helped raise him, but my ex refused to let me see him and threatened to tell him I'd been a cheater and abuser if I pursued any legal routes for visitation. At the time I was newly laid off and unable to afford a good lawyer. I really regret not fighting harder, calling her bluff, but I was afraid she'd turn him against me or even lie to the police and get me arrested for something I didn't do. JT and I reconnected last year. He's 20 now and living on his own, and in college, for engineering at that. We've been playing catch up and he's met my wife and one of my daughters, I've given him some things for his apartment, etc. He eventually asked me why I didn't stick around after his mom and I split. I told him pretty point blank, your mom made sure I couldn't. I didn't go into detail with the threats or why we split in the first place, but I let him know she had strong-armed me into being no contact. JT was understandably furious. Obviously I didn't expect his mom to have told him the truth, but I didn't realize how in the dark he'd been. I got a call from my ex, I have the same number as I always have, with her cussing me out for slandering her to her son and talking to him in general. This is the first I've heard from her in 5 years, by the way. She apparently hadn't known JT reached out to me. I told her to never contact me again, and that her son's a grown man and can do as he wishes. I've deleted her number and talked to JT, who confirmed that he confronted his mom and they fought. He's clearly really upset that she lied to him for so long and feels really betrayed by her. I feel terrible and I'm wondering if maybe honesty, or full honesty, wasn't the best policy in this situation. Title: AITA for refusing to modify my house for my disabled tenant. Before you call me an hear me out. I, 21F, lived in a house with my disabled great-aunt until about 3 years ago when she passed. She left me the deed to the house. I've been living in it ever since by myself. The house itself is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 2-story house. My aunt had the downstairs modified to be wheelchair accessible when she became confined to a wheelchair, but she never bothered to fix up the second floor because she never went up there because her room and office was downstairs. I eventually moved at 14 and took over the upstairs. When I lost my job because of COVID, I decided to rent out the extra 2 rooms downstairs, because I don't use them. I was very reluctant about living with a stranger, but I needed the income. So I eventually found Brian, 26 meters, who is in a wheelchair due to a car accident that left him paralyzed in his legs. He rented out both rooms, one for his bedroom and the other for an office. I'm not going to lie, the fact that he's in a wheelchair makes me feel better about having a stranger living in the house. Because I know he can't hurt me. We've been living together since June, and we get along pretty well. He's a nice guy. But he's been hassling me about getting one of those chair things for the stairs so he can go to the second floor, but I've been refusing. I told him that the downstairs is wheelchair accessible, so there's nothing he can get upstairs that he can't get downstairs, and that the upstairs is my space and he doesn't have a right to go up there. I think I'm NTA, but my brother disagrees. AITA. Edit. I do realize he could still hurt me, but it would be difficult. He is totally paralyzed, absolutely no used in the legs. And while I bet he does have the arm strength, I'm a 155.4 woman who was a powerlifter in high school. I could most definitely overpower him if need be. He is paying for the 2 rooms and use of the common areas, bathrooms, 1 guest, and one that is privately his, living room, kitchen, dining room, backyard. Upstairs is my room, my office, my bathroom, and a small living room at the top of the stairs. I do keep a mini fridge and a microwave upstairs just for those long nights where I don't feel like going downstairs. Title: AITA for not forgiving my wife when she wanted me to pay for a nursery room with my son's VOD device money. I am 37, been with my wife for 2 years, and I have a 9-year-old son from my previous marriage with a congenital heart disease. He's in the last stage and is currently on waitlist for a possible heart transplant. The problem is that he's sick most of the time. We had numerous visits to the hospital. He's currently on medication, but he's always struggling with doing activities and playing just like other kids. The cardiologist told me about a device called VOD that would help and improve my son's condition. I've looked into it. Spoke to other parents of kids who have the same condition, and I decided to get my son this device, and I was told the sooner the better so that my son could participate in activities and feel comfortable while breathing and limit hospital visits. I've been saving up money for this device, and I was planning on making an appointment with the private clinic staff to have his operation done this month. My wife is 4 months pregnant, and she's been asking when I was going to pay for a nursery room for our baby and complained that I was neglecting our baby and still haven't gotten anything for him. She started showing me different nurseries online that she thought were nice, and she went crazy about one of them that costs nearly $3,500. She insisted that I get it, but I told her that the money is for my son's operation. She said that this is my son as well. She criticized the doctor's recommendations and said that doctors are now advertising for many insufficient devices just to get money out of it, and brought up what happened with her deceased dad and how they took his money and didn't treat his condition. I told her to drop it, and she threw a fit, calling me stubborn. My wife made dinner for us and seemed quieter than usual, then she brought it up again. I told her to stop, but she went on about her expectations for me to be a good father to our unborn son and how I'm neglecting him already. I didn't even finish dinner, and before I went into the bedroom she told me that she already called the store and pre-ordered the nursery she liked, and that I should know because I will be paying for it. I lost it. I yelled at her for doing this after I already gave her my answer. I demanded she cancels the order and she yelled back that I was being unfair and will be an awful dad who already failed once and how sorry she feels for our son. She told me this in front of my son. We argued back and forth. She ended up going to her family and she's been there for 2 days now.